The IKEA that shouldn't exist. I work search and rescue along the Appalachian Trail. People go missing in those woods all the time. Usually it's just a hiker who got turned around, someone who wandered too far off trail. But sometimes we find things that don't make sense. Like the IKEA. I first heard about it from a trucker who swore he saw a fully lit IKEA store deep in the woods, miles away from the nearest town. No roads leading to it, no parking lot, just there. He was so shaken I thought he was drunk. But a week later, a backpacker radioed in, claiming he'd taken shelter from a storm inside a massive furniture store that shouldn't exist. He didn't say much else, just that he barely got out. A few of my team went looking. Only one came back. He didn't talk much after that. He wouldn't even say what happened. Now it's my turn to check it out. Welcome, traveller, to Dreadwood Tales, a place where the shadows whisper and the unknown awaits. If you crave chilling stories of the eerie and unexplained, you're in the right place. But beware, your support fuels the darkness. Like, comment, and subscribe to keep the stories coming, and to shape what horrors we uncover next. Have a nightmare to share? A legend to explore? Drop it in the comments. Your suggestion might just become our next tale. Now, let's step into the dark together. They assigned me and my partner, Mike, to investigate. We weren't looking for the store, of course. Officially, we were tracking a missing hiker. A woman named Julia Harding, last seen near an unmapped section of the trail. Her last text message read, "Found a weird store out here. Thought it was abandoned, but it's open." She was never heard from again. We followed her trail for 2 days, and then, around dusk on the 3rd, we saw it. The IKEA. It sat perfectly intact in a clearing, fluorescent lights glowing softly against the tree line. A full-sized IKEA store in the middle of nowhere. No signs, no roads, no loading docks, just standing like it had always been there. Mike whispered, "No way, no damn way. We should have left." We didn't. The automatic doors slid open when we stepped forward, welcoming us inside with that familiar scent of particle board and Swedish meatballs. The place looked exactly like every other IKEA, showroom displays, carefully arranged home sets, a cafeteria in the distance. Only something felt off. The layout kept changing. Hallways seemed to stretch longer when we turned back. No windows, no emergency exits, just endless showrooms. The staff, they looked human, but their movements were off, too stiff, too synchronized, and their faces too perfect. A tall employee in a yellow IKEA shirt approached. "Welcome to IKEA. Can I help you find something?" His voice was flat, too rehearsed. Mike cleared his throat. Yeah. We're looking for a missing hiker. Woman named Julia Harding?" The employee's smile didn't change. "I'm sorry, sir. We are currently out of stock on that item. Can I help you find something else?" My stomach dropped. We decided to leave. Now. But as we turned, we realized the entrance was gone. Where the glass doors had been, there was now just another aisle. Rows of bookshelves stretching endlessly in both directions. The employee was still smiling. "Is there anything else I can assist you with?" Mike grabbed my arm. "We need to go. Now." We moved fast, winding through furniture displays, trying to retrace our steps. But the store was shifting around us. Shelves blocked pathways we had just walked through. The lighting dimmed. The ambient music, once soft and corporate, started warping into low, distorted static. Then we saw them. Other shoppers, or what used to be shoppers. They wandered between aisles aimlessly, dressed in outdated clothing. Their expressions were blank, eyes glazed over, mouths slightly open as if they had forgotten how to close them. One woman shuffled past, her IKEA cart filled with rotting food. The smell of decay trailed behind her. Another man stood in front of a shelf, touching the same lamp over and over, as if he was trapped in a loop. "They're stuck here," I whispered. "They've been here for years." A voice boomed over the intercom. Unfamiliar, hollow, wrong. "Attention, shoppers. The store will be closing in 10 minutes. Please make your way to the checkout lanes." Mike and I ran. We ran past aisles that repeated themselves, past the same bookshelves, the same dining sets, the same wrongness over and over again. But the more we moved, the more the store seemed to expand. The lights flickered in strange patterns, making shadows stretch and shrink in unnatural ways. Something skittered above us, running across what should have been a ceiling, but now looked like an infinite void. A deep thrumming sound vibrated through the walls, a sound so low it made my ribs ache. The store was alive. The aisles stretched endlessly, but then we saw her. Julia Harding, still alive. She was crouched behind a display of sofas, eyes wide with terror. "You have to hide," she gasped. "When the store closes, She never finished. A low hum filled the store as the lights dimmed to near darkness. And then the employees changed. Their bodies twitched violently, limbs elongating, joints bending backward as their smiles split wider than any human mouth should go. Their yellow uniforms stretched over something inhuman. Mike screamed as one of them lurched toward him, arms unfolding like spider legs. More of them stepped out from the aisles, their distorted bodies now barely resembling human shapes. Their voices, once flat and polite, now crackled like an old radio. "Welcome to IKEA. Can I help you find something?" Their words layered over each other, hundreds of voices speaking in near unison, but all wrong. We sprinted through the aisles, dodging clawed hands reaching from the shadows. The other shoppers turned toward us, their faces warping, twisting, expressions locked in permanent, empty smiles. The intercom buzzed again, closer, whispering, "Please proceed to checkout." A checkout counter appeared ahead, a glowing exit sign just beyond it. But between us and freedom stood an employee, not smiling anymore, just staring. It tilted its head, then spoke in Julia's voice. "Would you like a receipt?" I didn't stop. I tore through the counter, crashing past registers, Julia right behind me. Mike wasn't. I turned back just in time to see hands, so many hands, dragging him back into the dark. He didn't even get to scream. Then we were through. Outside. The forest was back. The store was gone. Julia sobbed. I collapsed onto the ground. Mike was gone. And somewhere, deep in the trees, I swear I could still hear the automated intercom. "Thank you for shopping at IKEA. Please come again. If you made it this far, I have one question for you. Would you go back? Would you step inside that IKEA again, knowing what's waiting in the shadows? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story gave you chills, take a second to hit that like button. It helps the algorithm bring more lost souls into the depths of Dreadwood tales. And trust me, once you enter, there's no turning back. The night air was thick with silence. Julia and I sat in the dirt, gasping for breath, the reality of what just happened sinking in. The IKEA was gone. Completely. As if it had never been there. But Mike was still inside. The automated voice still echoed in my head. "Thank you for shopping at IKEA. Please come again." Julia gripped my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "We have to go back." Her voice was hoarse, raw, filled with a kind of desperation I'd never heard before. I wanted to tell her she was insane, that we barely made it out alive, that whatever was in there had already taken Mike. But I couldn't say any of that, because deep down, I knew she was right. I reached for my radio, fumbling with shaking fingers. "Base, this is Reeves. We found Julia Harding. We have a situation." Static. Then a response, except it wasn't from Base. "I'm sorry, sir. That item is out of stock. Would you like to browse our other selections?" My blood ran cold. Julia clamped a hand over her mouth. The voice was calm, polite, too familiar. It sounded exactly like the IKEA employee. But this wasn't coming from inside the store. It was coming from the radio. I crushed the receiver in my hand and threw it as far as I could into the woods. "We need to move. Now." We ran. Downhill, off-trail, tearing through brush and branches, not caring if we got scratched up. The only thing that mattered was putting distance between us and whatever that was. My lungs burned, my legs screamed for me to stop, but I didn't. Not until we saw the glow of flashlights ahead. "Hey!" I shouted. "We're here, over here!" 3 men in uniform stood in a clearing. Rangers, or at least that's what I thought. One of them stepped forward. His vest had the search and rescue emblem stitched across it, but something was wrong. His face was smooth, his expression eerily blank. Too still, too perfect. "Sir, ma'am, you are both safe now. Please return to your designated location." I blinked. "What? No, Your transaction has been completed. Please exit the store and return to your designated location." Julia grabbed my hand. "They're not real." Her voice was barely a whisper. The men stood motionless, their flashlights aimed at our faces, but their eyes didn't react to the light. Just black, empty pools staring back. My gut twisted. I took a slow step backward, then another. The ranger closest to us smiled. "Would you like a receipt?" I didn't wait. We ran. The forest blurred around us, branches slashing against my arms, my legs aching with every step. Behind me I could hear footsteps. Many, too many. The voices followed us, polite, calm, identical. Attention shoppers, IKEA will be closing in 5 minutes. Please proceed to checkout. Welcome to IKEA, can I help you find something? Your transaction is complete. Please return to your designated location. I tripped, hit the ground hard. Julia skidded to a stop and grabbed my arm. Get up, they're coming. I forced myself to my feet. My vision swam, but I saw them. Figures moving between the trees, their uniforms shifting, melting, twisting into yellow IKEA employee shirts, their smiles stretched wider, too wide. A sound ripped through the trees, an awful guttural static that made my skull vibrate. Then, a new voice. One I recognized. Reeves, help, I'm here! My stomach dropped. Mike? Julia yanked my arm. It's not him. Help me! Oh God, they're changing me. I turned. My legs locked in place. The figures had stopped moving. They stood in the trees, watching, waiting. One of them stepped forward. Its body shuddered, its limbs bending at unnatural angles. The skin on its face rippled, shifting, warping, stretching, until it was wearing Mike's face. Reeves, it hurts. Please. I wanted to move. I couldn't. Mike, stay back, Julia screamed. It's not him. The thing lurched toward me, a crackle of static. The forest disappeared. And suddenly, we were back inside IKEA. The smell of sawdust and plastic filled my lungs. The overhead lights flickered, illuminating endless aisles of furniture. Employees lined the checkout counters, their heads slowly turning toward us in unison. Thank you for shopping at IKEA. Please come again. And then the intercom buzzed overhead. Attention shoppers, the store is now closed. The lights cut to black. Somewhere out there, in the deepest corners of YouTube, there are more stories like this, waiting to be found. But the algorithm doesn't always lead people where they need to go. That's where you come in. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, subscribe to Dreadwood Tales. It's free, and it helps others like you stumble into the same eerie corridors of horror that you just explored. And who knows, maybe the next story will be about someone just like you. Darkness swallowed everything. For a moment there was nothing. No sound, no air, just an overwhelming void pressing in from all sides. Then light, a flickering glow from the overhead fixtures, casting long shadows over the endless aisles. We were back inside IKEA. Julia gripped my arm, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. No! We were out! We were... A chime rang through the air. The intercom crackled to life. Attention, shoppers, the store is now closed. Please proceed to the nearest exit. But there were no exits. I spun around, heart hammering. The checkout lanes were empty now. The employees, the customers, all gone. The silence felt heavier than before, a presence all its own. Then, a sound. Shuffle deep within the store. We need to move, I whispered. Now. We ran, darting between displays, weaving through the fake living rooms and kitchen setups. The smell of cheap plastic and sawdust filled my nose, mixing with something else, something rotten. Julia clutched my sleeve, pointing. Look. In the distance, barely illuminated by a flickering light, was Mike. He stood in one of the showroom displays, a perfectly staged family dining room. His face was slack, his eyes unfocused, staring down at a table set for 4. He didn't move. Mike! I rushed toward him, but Julia grabbed me, yanking me back. That's not him, she hissed. Not anymore. I hesitated, my stomach twisted. I knew she was right. But then, Mike's head turned. His eyes locked onto mine. You came back. His voice was wrong. Slower, stretched, like someone trying to remember how speech worked. But he looked like Mike. He moved like Mike. And then he smiled. You can help me. It's not too late. Something lurched in the shadows behind him. A shape, too large, too many limbs bending in the wrong directions. Mike flinched, but his expression remained eerily calm. Please, he whispered, get me out. Julia yanked me backward just as it stepped into the light. A mass of limbs and shifting flesh, its form flickering between shapes like a glitching video. The moment I saw it, my mind screamed at me to look away, like the very sight of it was a mistake. But I couldn't. It had Mike's face. Or maybe Mike had its face. The thing tilted its head at me. Then, in a perfect imitation of my own voice, it spoke. Reeves, please, help me. My body seized with pure terror. My own voice coming from that. Run, Julia shouted. We bolted. Behind us, the thing shrieked, a warped digital sound, like a radio signal breaking apart. The store shifted around us. Aisles rearranged themselves, pathways blocked off as soon as we reached them. The walls closed in. "We're not getting out," Julia screamed. "It won't let us." A sign above us flickered. "Warehouse, this way." The warehouse! I grabbed Julia's hand and pulled her toward the massive grey doors at the back of the store. If there was anywhere in an IKEA that led somewhere else, it was there. The doors burst open before we could even touch them. A gust of air pulled us inside. Then we were falling. We landed hard on cold concrete. The air was thick with dust. Massive industrial shelves loomed over us, stretching higher than any normal building should allow. "The warehouse! What the hell?" Julia groaned, pushing herself up. "Where?" A sound echoed through the aisles, something massive moving above us. "It followed us," I whispered. Julia grabbed my wrist. "No! Something else is here!" Another noise. Closer. A slow, deliberate scraping against the concrete floor. "Go," I whispered, quietly. We crept between the shelves, the vast space swallowing all sound except the faint creak of metal overhead. Rows upon rows of unopened boxes surrounded us, some with faded IKEA branding, others with no labels at all. The deeper we went, the stranger the items became. Chairs with too many legs, lamps that breathed, mattresses that pulsed like something was alive inside them. And then at the end of the aisle we saw it. A door. Old wooden, covered in dust. A real door. Something that didn't belong to IKEA. "That's our way out," Julia whispered. I reached for the handle, and then we heard it. A child. Sobbing. We froze. The sound came from the other side of the warehouse, hidden between the towering shelves. "No," Julia whispered. "No, that's a trap. It's not real." But the sobbing didn't stop. "Please," a tiny voice whimpered. "I don't want to be here anymore." I clenched my fists. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But what if this one was real? Julia grabbed my arm. "Reeves, don't." I turned back toward the door. The handle was warm, like someone had just touched it. If we left now, we could be free, but the sobbing grew louder. "Please," the child whispered. "They took my mommy. I don't want to be here." My jaw clenched, my heart pounded. I made my choice. I turned toward the sobbing. "Reeves," Julia hissed. "No!" I ran. Deeper into the warehouse. Past towering boxes, past rows of flickering bulbs. The air grew thick, heavy, like moving through water. My breath hitched. The sobbing was just ahead. A small figure huddled on the floor, arms wrapped around their knees. A little girl. She looked up at me, eyes wide and glassy. "Please don't leave me here." Something shifted behind me. A long shadow stretched across the floor. I turned and saw the employees, lined up, waiting, their heads tilted in unison. Their mouths stretched into wide, welcoming grins. "Found something you like?" one of them asked. My voice. The little girl grabbed my wrist. Her hand was ice cold. "Please," she whispered again. "They won't let me leave." I looked back at Julia. She stood at the wooden door, her hand on the knob. "Reeves, we have to go," she screamed. I looked at the girl, looked at the employees, and I made my choice. Epilogue. Julia and I stumbled out of the warehouse, back into the forest. The IKEA was gone. I collapsed onto the ground, lungs burning. Julia was screaming at me, but I couldn't hear her. My mind was still back there. Back with the I left her. I don't know if she was real. I don't know if anything in there was real. But every night since, I hear her voice. "Please, come back for me." And I know deep down that one day, I will. I have to. Because somewhere out there, hidden in the Appalachian woods, the IKEA is waiting, and next time, I might not make it out. You've reached the end of the story, but the nightmare never truly ends. Somewhere in the dark, that IKEA is still waiting. And next time, it could be you walking through those endless aisles. If you felt that unease, that lingering fear in the back of your mind, like the store still has its grip on you, then leave a like. It tells the algorithm that horror like this needs to be shared. And if you want to be part of the dread, subscribe to Dreadwood Tales. It's free.